Most project managers and business analysts are wasting hours of their time collecting data that is completely useless because they are asking the wrong questions in the wrong way. If you have ever sent out a survey only to get back a bunch of maybe answers or feedback that doesn't actually help you make a decision, you know how frustrating it is to feel like you are flying blind. Today, we are going to fix that by walking through a professional, step-by-step guide to crafting questionnaires that actually give you the answers you need to drive change and lead your team successfully. In this video, we are going to cover everything from the very first spark of an idea to the final analysis of your data. We have a packed agenda today. We are starting with how to define your goals so you don't wander off track. Then we will look at how to identify your audience because talking to a CEO is very different from talking to a frontline developer. We will dive into the structural layout of your survey, the art of writing clear questions without the confusing corporate speak, and how to pick the right question types like Likert scales or open-ended boxes. Finally, we will talk about the make or break step of testing your survey before it goes live and how to actually handle the data once it starts rolling in. By the end of this video, you will have a repeatable framework that makes you the go-to expert for data collection in your organization. Before you even open a Word document or a Google form, you have to ask yourself one question. Why am I doing this? It sounds simple, but this is where most people trip up right at the starting line. They think, I need some feedback, and they start typing. That is a recipe for a messy, confusing survey. You need to be incredibly specific about your why. Are you trying to find out why people are unhappy with a new software tool? Are you trying to measure if a training session actually taught anyone anything? Or are you trying to figure out which features to build next in your product roadmap? Let's imagine you are a project manager named Sarah. Sarah's company just switched to a new internal communication tool, and half the staff is complaining while the other half is silent. If Sarah just sends out a survey asking, do you like the new tool? She's going to get useless answers. Instead, Sarah needs to define a goal like, identify the top 3 technical hurdles preventing the marketing department from using the new chat feature. See the difference? One is vague, the other is a mission. When you have a clear goal, every single question you write has to earn its place on the paper by proving it helps meet that goal. If a question doesn't serve the goal, delete it, no mercy. Think of your goal as your North Star. If you are in the middle of a forest and you don't know where you are going, you will walk in circles. Data collection is the same. Without a goal, you will collect a mountain of data that sits on your hard drive and rots because it doesn't actually tell you what to do next. You want actionable data. You want data that makes a decision feel obvious. Once you know why you are asking, you have to look at who you are asking. Your audience changes everything. If you are talking to a room full of senior executives, your language needs to be punchy, high level, and respectful of their very limited time. If you are talking to the technical team, you can use more specific terminology, but you still need to be clear. If you use big, fancy words just to sound smart, you are going to confuse people, and confused people give bad data. Or worse, they just close the tab and ignore you. Think about the relationship your audience has with the topic. Let's say you are a business analyst looking into a new payroll system. If you ask the employees, how do you feel about the back-end integration of the API, they are going to stare at you blankly. But if you ask, how easy was it to find your pay stub this month? You will get a flood of useful information. You have to meet them where they are. You also have to watch out for bias. If people think their answers might get them in trouble, they won't tell you the truth. They will tell you what they think you want to hear. This is called social desirability bias. If you are the boss and you ask your team, am I a good leader? Everyone is going to say yes because they want to keep their jobs. You have to frame your questions or your distribution method in a way that makes the audience feel safe, to be honest. Maybe that means making the survey anonymous or using a third party to collect the results. Know your audience's fears and motivations before you send that first invite. Structure is the vibe of your questionnaire. Have you ever started a survey that looked like a wall of text? You probably wanted to quit immediately. A good questionnaire has a logical flow like a good conversation. You don't walk up to a stranger and ask for their social security number. You start with, hello. Your questionnaire needs an introduction. This is your chance to sell the survey. Tell them why you are doing this, how long it will take. Be honest, if it takes 10 minutes, don't say 2, and what you will do with the results. If you tell people your feedback will directly influence our office layout for next year, they are much more likely to give you high-quality answers. After the intro, group your questions into logical sections. If you are asking about office culture and also about technical equipment, don't mix them up. Give them a heading for office environment and then a heading for tools and technology. This helps the respondent stay in the right mindset. The sequence of questions is also a big deal. Start with the easy wins. These are simple, non-threatening questions that get the person into a rhythm. Save the deep, heavy, or sensitive questions for the middle or the end. By the time they get to the hard stuff, they have already invested 5 minutes and are more likely to finish the job. If you hit them with a hard question on page 1, they might just give up. This is where the real work happens. Writing questions is an art form. The biggest mistake is using double-barreled questions. This is when you ask 2 things at once but only allow 1 answer. For example, are you happy with the new office chairs and the coffee machine? What if they love the chair but hate the coffee? They don't know how to answer, so they pick a middle-of-the-road option and your data is ruined. Split those into 2 separate questions. Keep your language as simple as possible. Avoid jargon. Instead of saying utilize, say use. Instead of facilitate, say help. You want the respondent to spend their brain power thinking about the answer, not trying to decode what you are asking. Also, watch out for leading questions. A leading question is when you bake the right answer into the question itself. If you ask, how much did you enjoy the amazing team-building retreat? You are telling them they were supposed to enjoy it. You are leading them to a positive answer. Instead, ask, please rate your experience at the team-building retreat. This gives them the freedom to be honest without feeling like they are wrong for having a different opinion. Neutrality is your best friend in data collection. Not all questions are created equal. You have a whole toolbox at your disposal, and you need to pick the right tool for the job. First, you have closed-ended questions. These are great for quantitative data, things you can count and put into a chart. The most famous version is the Likert scale. This is the strongly disagree to strongly agree scale. It's perfect for measuring attitudes and feelings. Then you have multiple choice questions, which are great when there are a set number of options, like which department do you work in? Then there are open-ended questions. These are the text boxes where people can write whatever they want. These are gold mines for qualitative data. They give you the why behind the numbers. If 80% of people say they are unhappy, quantitative, the open-ended box might tell you it's because the air conditioning is too cold, qualitative. However, don't use too many of these. They take a long time to answer and a long time to analyze. Use them sparingly for the most important points. You also have dichotomous questions, which is just a fancy way of saying yes, no. These are great for screening. Have you used the new software? If they say no, you can use logic in your survey tool to skip the next 5 questions about how the software works. Finally, there are ranking questions. These are perfect when you need to prioritize. Rank these 5 office perks from most important to least important. This forces people to make choices, which is exactly what you have to do as a leader. Never, ever send a survey to 500 people without testing it on 5 people first. This is called a pilot test. You think your questions are clear because you wrote them. You know what you meant, but other people might read them differently. Find a small group of people who are similar to your target audience. Ask them to take the survey while you watch, or ask them for feedback afterward. Did any questions confuse them? Did the survey feel too long? Were there any technical glitches where a button didn't work? I remember a project manager who sent out a company-wide survey and forgot to include accounting as a department option. Half the company couldn't even finish the first page because they didn't have a button to click. It was embarrassing and a huge waste of time. A simple 5-minute test with 1 person from each floor would have caught that error. Testing isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of a professional who cares about the quality of their work. Fix the bugs in private so you can look like a pro in public. You have built the perfect questionnaire. Now, how do you get people to actually take it? Distribution is about timing and convenience. If you send an internal survey at 4:30 p.m. on a Friday, nobody's going to look at it. If you send it Tuesday morning at 10 a.m., you have a much better shot. Use the tools your company already uses. If everyone is on Slack, send the link there. If they live in their email, send an invite. Once the data starts coming in, don't just look at the averages. Averages can be liars. If half your team is ecstatic and the other half is miserable, the average will look like everyone is just okay. Look for patterns. Are the new hires the ones who are struggling? Is one specific department much happier than the others? Look for outliers, too. If one person gives a really long, detailed response in an open-ended box, read it carefully. Sometimes one person has the courage to say what everyone else is thinking, but is too afraid to write down. Analysis is about finding the story inside the numbers. Once you find that story, you can present it to your leadership team with confidence because you have the data to back it up. We have talked a lot about the technical steps, but we need to talk about the human element, survey fatigue. People are tired of being asked for their opinion and then seeing nothing happen. This is the biggest problem project managers face. If you want people to keep answering your questionnaires, you have to show them that their voice matters. After you analyze the data, close the loop. Send a short email to the participants saying, "Thank you for your feedback. We learned that X was a problem, so we are going to do Y to fix it." When people see that their 5 minutes of survey taking actually resulted in a better office chair or a better workflow, they will be your biggest fans the next time you need data. This is how you build a culture of continuous improvement. Creating a questionnaire isn't just a chore on your to-do list. It is a powerful tool for change. It allows you to step outside of your own bubble and see the organization through the eyes of the people doing the work. When you follow these steps, defining your goal, knowing your audience, structuring for flow, writing clearly, choosing the right tools, testing and following through, you aren't just a paper pusher. You are a strategic leader who makes decisions based on reality, not guesswork. Subscribe to the Mychangemanagement channel for more practical tips.